Some reptiles are really easy to breed, but that doesn't mean that you should. So today let's go over the top 5 easiest reptiles to breed and why you probably shouldn't. My name's Adam, this is Jerry, you're watching Wickens Reptiles, stick around. More reptiles isn't always better, and this is what I mean. The reason that I put in the title, you probably shouldn't, is just simply because I'm going to tell you the top 5 easiest reptiles to breed. I will, as promised, as advertised. This is not clickbait, but you're going to take an ear beating the entire time, me telling you why most people probably shouldn't breed reptiles. So let's just get right into it and start it off with number 5, leopard geckos. Now, this is a female leopard gecko. She could easily be bred this year. I have a male I could pair her with, but I'm not going to, just simply because we have so many leopard geckos already of the same morphs that Jerry and Cheech, who's the male that I would put her with. I just don't see why we should be making more basic Tremper albino leopard geckos. It just doesn't make any sense because there's so many of them. The only breeding projects I choose to do are ones where I can sell them all pretty quickly and there is a need for them in the marketplace. Okay, enough lecturing. Why are they so easy to breed? Well, the breeding season is 365 days a year. I get asked all the time, how long is breeding season? There is more to it than just throwing leopard geckos together and hoping for the best. I did a whole video right here on how to breed leopard geckos, but it is pretty simple. I mean, of all the geckos or all the animals I've ever bred, leopard geckos are probably the easiest in my opinion, just because it takes almost no knowledge in order to successfully breed them. But you should have knowledge and you should have a place for all the babies to go. Because the number one thing that I see is people have a season for leopard geckos. Let's suppose that you get 12 babies, 16 babies, something like that, right? Because they're gonna lay in clutches of 2 eggs and they're gonna lay every 2 or 3 weeks. And then you're gonna end up having like 12 or 16 leopard geckos, sometimes less, sometimes more. Again, all that information's in the video, but you don't know what to do with them. I mean, you can throw them up on Craigslist, but you're not going to get what you think you're going to get for them, and they're going to be a lot harder to move than you think, especially if what you have is a pretty basic morph. If you're making regular, normal leopard geckos or something super basic like Tremper albinos, it might be difficult to move because everybody and their mother is breeding those. But if you think there's a market for what you're breeding and you have the knowledge and you know what you're doing, it's pretty simple. You throw them together after you either light cycle, cool them down. There's a bunch of ways to do it so that the females start ovulating and being able to produce eggs. And then you put them into like a vermiculite or a perlite substrate. You put them in there for 45 to 60 days, depending on the temperature. They are temperature sex determinate, which means you can choose if you get females or males. And the incubator can be something as simple as a Coleman cooler that well, there's a video about that too. It's here. You can watch how to make this is how I incubate all my eggs for every species I ever incubate. Do your research, have places to store them, racking system probably if you're gonna do multiple females, and have a place to sell them to. Leopard geckos are super easy to breed. Number 4, ball pythons. And I think ball pythons might actually be the most difficult to move if you don't have an established name for yourself, for your business, for your breeding group. If you don't have a place to get rid of animals and you're just gonna, I know, they'll just magically disappear. Well, they're not going to, especially with ball pythons, especially if you have lower end morphs that everybody has, or if you have normals. I've bought normal ball pythons. I've said this a million times on this channel. I bought a normal ball python 4 years ago for $5. For $5, I bought a normal. People will just basically give them away, especially if you don't have a name behind you. If you're Joe Blow's Exotic and you just started breeding this year and no one knows who you are, it's gonna be much more difficult to move them. Now, enough lecturing, and after this we'll just stop with the you get the point by now, I think, right? My point here is just, if you're gonna start breeding ball pythons, breed something that is A, quality, and B, is something that is gonna be sought after. If you breed pieds, you're gonna be able to move pieds, basically is what I'm saying, so it just takes a little bit more money to start up. But the reason they're so easy is because even dummies like me can do it. I've bred ball pythons for several years, and I don't have any fancy equipment, I don't have fancy racks, I have home-built racks, I don't have an ultrasound machine. I just learned from YouTube how to do it. Of course, if you want to know right now, today, how to do it, there are several videos out there with people who are very knowledgeable and experts. But for now, to sum it up, basically, you want to make sure that your female is producing follicles. You can do that by, there's a few ways. Light cycling, temperature is a way that people do it as well. Some people just start increasing food, certain times of the year. It just depends. I'll cover all this in the breeding ball pythons video. Once you know the female is ovulating, you start pairing them together. You watch for a pre-lay shed, eggs drop out, you put them in an incubator, 55, 53, 60 days later, out pop all these babies. Yeah, it's not super duper complicated by any means, but it is a little bit more, there's more to it than leopard geckos, let's just say that. And don't go breed ball pythons with what I just said in the quick summary. You need to do your research before you do that, for sure. But I mean, look how cute they are. Once you get babies, look how cute these little banana ball pythons are. I still have 3 of these bananas. They are females. I'm gonna keep them and I'm gonna breed them because ball pythons, banana morph, is very sought after, and I am very lucky and in a unique situation where people watch this channel and I can move reptiles very easily. They move before they're even born, basically. Super easy, super fun, beautiful. Once the babies start popping out, it is a feeling that I can't even really explain. But if you're going to do it, put some money down and make sure that you buy something that people are actually going to want. Don't just produce animals for the sake of producing animals. Number 3, hognose snakes. Now, hognose snakes, you hear about on this channel a lot because I love them. They are the first animal that I ever bought with the intention of breeding. I bought one. I realized this is like the coolest snake ever. I realized at the expo, the only one that was there was one that I bought. So there is definitely a need for them. There is a market for them. There is high demand, low supply, and they're not that difficult to breed. In fact, if you breed them successfully, oftentimes they'll put out a second or even sometimes a third clutch of eggs. So they are prolific breeders. With that in mind, don't force them. I have been breeding for, I guess this will be my 4th year breeding hognose snakes, and I don't force second clutches. If they happen, great, but if not, I mean, it is what it is. I value my animals because I love them as pets. They all have names. I give them all names. This is Wickens. She's the mother of several of the babies here. But why I put them on the list is not only are they easy, I could have put corn snakes or king snakes or whatever. I just feel like hognose snakes are a better representation if you wanted to breed something that actually has a need for more babies to be born. Because hognose snakes are very sought after in comparison to corn snakes. And I don't mean that they're more popular, I just mean that there is more demand for them because there is less supply. So maybe that's not the right way to say it. The demand and supply ratio is not the same. What I'm saying here is if you breed hognose snakes and you get healthy babies, you're gonna be able to move them most likely, just simply because so many people want them and there's not a ton of breeders. But with that in mind, know what you're getting yourself in for. There's a care guide right here, and there's a hognose breeding linked right below as well. I did a video last year about it. They are amazing. I absolutely love them. There's tons and tons of morphs, and there's new morphs all the time. But again, I would recommend don't buy 2 normals and stick them together. People are going to get bored of the normals pretty quick. And if you're producing only normals and that's all you have, you'll have a tougher time selling them. If you buy an albino and a het albino and you get some albinos and some normals, then you'll have a better time or easier time selling them because you have more variety. And same thing when you start combining genes and things like that. And the same thing goes with ball pythons, by the way. Tons of genes and tons of combinations. I just think hognose snakes, the popularity is really there, and I'm really happy to see that because they're amazing colubrids. Just be careful if you do decide to do this. I talk about this in the breeding video that I pointed to below, but the males are way smaller than the females, so you gotta really know what you're doing, know the reaction you're looking for from the female, because in rare circumstances, females have been known to eat their boyfriends. So just be very careful about that, but hognose snakes definitely belong on this list. Number 2, garter snakes. One of the most underrated reptiles that there is, period, and take it for granted, I feel like, because those of us who live in North America, basically everywhere you are in North America, you probably have seen a garter snake out in your yard or on a hike or something. Like, they're everywhere. They're just freaking everywhere. The first snake I ever saw in my life as a kid, I almost stepped on it, was a garter snake. I remember it like it was yesterday. With these guys, the reason I think they belong on this list is twofold. No eggs to worry about. They're ovoviviparous, which means that the babies grow on the inside and they come out. There's no eggs to incubate. They incubate inside the mother. And also, there is kind of a demand that's growing. So the problem, though, is with the demand growing and they are easy to breed, it is going to be to a point pretty quick, I think, where the supply outweighs the demand, just simply because, well, first of all, it's illegal to keep them in a lot of places, so check your bylaws, and if you're going to comment below, are they illegal? And I don't know, just check your city bylaws. Yeah, it's your responsibility as the pet owner or future pet owner to know your laws and to find out where to find them, which is your city website, by the way. You'll have your bylaws on there. But also, they produce a lot of babies, and I guess the same goes with hognose snakes, and ball pythons don't fit into this because like a 9-egg clutch with a ball python is a pretty big one, where with garter snakes, 20 to 40, depending on species, and there are a bunch of different species, so it depends on the species, and there's several of them for you to choose from, but a lot of babies come out at once. And although it is a blessing that you don't have to worry about eggs, it might also be a curse to some because, well, you're just going to wake up and they're going to be in the enclosure. You have to take the snake out of the enclosure. You have to sift through all the substrate, the background, the furnishings. They're so little. They're like little worms when they come out, so they can be hard to find. I don't plan to breed these snakes, although they are amazing. I do think that I will probably own them at one point for sure. I just think garter snakes are amazing and they're beautiful to watch because they are diurnal. They're a basking species and one of the only species of snakes that you can really cohab not to a detriment of them. It is actually, in a lot of circles or a lot of people who are experts with garter snakes would advise you to cohabitate garter snakes just simply because they do well in groups. So you'll definitely see them in my collection once the new reptile room is ready to go. And yeah, I smacked myself in the face with a hammer when I was... Anyway, follow the Instagram page if you want to see the updates on the reptile room. It's getting there, and by spring, by the beginning of spring, we'll definitely have a bigger reptile room for you to check out. So hit subscribe if you haven't already, and on Instagram, I've been doing kind of like updates on the room. And a special thanks again to the All Canadian Reptile Girl for sending this footage. Awesome channel, link in the description below. Let's move on to number 1. Okay, easiest to breed by a mile, in my opinion, as far as reptiles go. Number 1, Mourning geckos, because you don't need to do anything except for, wait, that's it. Parthenogenesis. I would go through a dictionary term, but I can't remember more than 3 words together, so I'll put it right here if you want to read what that. Basically, they don't need a male. A female doesn't need a male to produce babies. So it's very simple because you literally just put some of them into an enclosure and then eventually you'll wake up and there's going to be baby mourning geckos. It is very simple, and I'm sure I'm oversimplifying it. There's probably a better way to explain it, but at the end of the day, parthenogenesis means that even if you don't want to reproduce, sometimes you will. And that can happen with other reptiles as well. We've seen parthenogenesis in things even like ball pythons we saw, right? Not too long ago. But mourning geckos are well known for this. I get a lot of comments, hey man, you gotta talk about parthenogenesis and mourning geckos, and I agree with you. They're freaking awesome. So even if you want to get mourning geckos as a pet, I would recommend finding out a way to get rid of the babies. Maybe you have a local pet shop, but like a reptile store or something like that that will take them from you as a wholesale thing, just so that you can find good homes for them. The nice thing is with mourning geckos is just simply you can put a few of them in the same enclosure. They do cohabitate really well. So it's not like, oh, I want to keep some of the babies and need 45 enclosures. You can keep a few of them in the same enclosure. So it's not going to break the bank if you want to keep a couple of them and then get rid of the rest. And by get rid of, I mean sell and rehome, not like don't throw them places. We have enough bans going on. Don't do that with your mourning geckos. So there you go. Top 5 easiest reptiles to breed. What do you think? Did I get this right? Did I get it wrong? What would you have added? Let me know in the comment section below. And before you comment and say this is irresponsible to make a video like this, the reason I never made a video like this is because I wanted to make it kind of like as a teaching moment to not just breed for the sake of breeding. I don't want you to go out and get these because they're easy. The point of the video is breed because there is a market for the animals and you love to do it. That's it. We're going to do a new thing starting right now, Patreon of the week. If you want to be part of the Patreon supporters, I really appreciate it. For as little as $1 a month, you can get videos early, extra stuff, discounts on the merch. You get to know about reptiles in my collection that I don't talk about at all. Like last week, we showed off Kratos for the first time, even though Patreon knew about him for months. And this week's Patron of the Week, Professor Herp, the very first patron supporter ever. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. You're the man, and your name's on the screen, so everyone already knew that. Great channel. Go check him out. I think I've plugged absolutely everything. Hit subscribe. See you on Thursday.